Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker. She is your real estate voice. She's the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of the program. Barb, most home sellers have a great deal of love for their properties, and sometimes that translates into unrealistic beliefs, resulting in mistakes that could cost them thousands of dollars when the house does not sell. So, what are the top six seller mistakes that can cause a home not to sell or to sell for far less than was expected?
Well, I'd say the number one thing is pricing. Pricing is really, really critical. I've had homes that weren't that pretty, but they were priced right, and guess what? They sold and they sold quickly. And it's tough to figure out what is that sweet spot to get the most that you can for that home. You can't rely on Zillow. You can't rely on the averages. You can't rely on the tax assessment value. You can't even completely rely on similar sales. At the end of the day, the market, the buyers decide what they're willing to pay based on what's currently on the market at that time. And so, obviously, we're trying to help our sellers get the most money, but there are some people that just want it done. They don't even want to worry. They don't, it really depends on their priorities. And I think that really every home is special and unique. Um, they're not all cookie cutter. And the buyers recognize when a home is a good deal. They can smell it like a bloodhound. I'm telling you, they know exactly if it's a good deal. And we know right away if it's priced right, if we're starting to get lots of inquiries from buyers and agents about our listings. But certain things are relatively inexpensive, easy fix to take care of, that you can do that might really make the difference between the home selling for full market value or not. One of them is carpet. If the carpet's worn and stained and not in good shape, a lot of buyers will reject it because they just don't have the money. They're getting into the home with all the resources that they have. They don't have the money to go in there and put in carpet before they move into the house. Or if it needs a lot of work, probably almost half the buyers would reject a home like that. And if the home is overpriced, the buyers are going to know right away. You'll be able to tell by the few number of showings and activity. If it's priced right, even if it's priced low for its condition, that will sell right away. I had one of just a few weeks ago that definitely the carpet needs to be replaced. Definitely it has some deferred maintenance. We had a huge crowd at the open house. We had 4 offers and it sold for full price. So I was pretty pleased by that, or actually over full price, because it's not a move-in ready house. So there are exceptions to it, but you have to work with somebody that has the expertise to knows how to position the home to get it done. And in that case, the sellers wanted a quick sale. They weren't going to wait for months and months for a buyer to close. And they didn't want any uncertainty. So really, the number one mistake is failure to make important improvements. And I will say on that some home sellers think that, well, if I put in new carpet, can I raise the price? Maybe. Basically, the way buyers look at it, they're expecting move-in ready. Your competition could be new construction. So they don't see that as, should I pay more if it has new carpet? They see it as what they expect. So if the home, doesn't look like, if it looks like it needs a lot of work, fixing what I call deferred maintenance doesn't necessarily increase its value. Things like an old furnace or an old water heater, if it needs to be replaced, replacing it doesn't tack that price onto the value. It just means that the buyer has a functional home that they can work with going forward. I see a lot of buyers criticize popcorn ceilings. I don't know why. It doesn't bother me, but some buyers just can't stand it. And it's kind of a messy job to get rid of the popcorn texture on ceilings. But I would definitely consider some realistic upgrades. Buyers, of course, love the cosmetic improvements. They expect broken things to be fixed. And you really want to get the home, get everything taken care of, like curb appeal, just fix the broken stuff. The front door is critical. But some of the spaces you don't have to worry so much about. We don't normally shoot the inside of closets or inside of garages. You just want to make sure that it looks fresh and attractive. And you don't have to take a picture of every nook and cranny of the house. The whole idea behind marketing is to get them there and then let the house speak when they get there. Another mistake could be that they make improvements after it's stale on the market. Generally, the buyers are going to put eyes on new listings within the first 10 to 30 days that it's on the market. So that's the best time to get stuff done. Price it right, correct it, so that buyers don't turn their nose up at it. And of course, pricing too high is a huge mistake. The market is going to speak back to you immediately if it's priced too high. You won't have showings, you won't have calls, you won't have requests. That's a clue. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show, Your Real Estate Voice. And we're talking about the top 6 seller mistakes that may cause a home not to sell. And when we come back, we're going to discuss the rest of the mistakes and how you can avoid some of those mistakes. And if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
So, Barb, what are other mistakes that home sellers might make that could cause a home not to sell at all?
Well, I would say pricing it right, of course, is important. And so what I try to do when I meet with sellers is really focus on, okay, based on what we think it will sell for, all of your selling expenses, what you owe, we take all that off and we give them a really good idea what they'll put in their pocket when it sells. That's the important number. Doesn't matter if it sells for this number or that number. It's like when it sells and you have this much money in your pocket, is it the right number to move on and do the things that you want to do? And I call that kind of just right pricing, Goldilocks pricing, if you will. I just sold a home in Rockrimmon where really I thought it was probably worth maybe $675. It was in very good condition, but the seller deployed my strategy of pricing it on the low end of similar sales. He priced it at $650. We had 63 people attend the open house. We had 4 offers and it sold for $50,000 over asking price, and it went fast. That is the way to, that's actually the way that you get the most money. I had one that priced his home slightly low because he had some condition issues. Some of the systems weren't working very well, and he knew that, so he priced it below market. Again, huge crowd at the open house, and it sold for over asking price. But had I priced it at that high number, it wouldn't have sold for that number. And you can tell if you're a little bit off. If you're getting a high volume of showings and it's not working, like I had one home a few years ago where it was literally a 50s time warp. It had the, gray and pink bathrooms. The kitchen was original and it was not in good shape. And the seller was a kitchen designer, so he couldn't let that go. So he redid the kitchen. It was beautiful. And we thought we priced it right. We had lots of showings, but no offers. We ultimately, all he had to do was make a tiny price adjustment, and boom, it sold right away at full price. So the market's going to speak back to you right away. The other thing that's a huge mistake is letting an agent post a bad image about the property. Buyers are, as compared to like when I first got in the business back in the 90s, the typical buyer back then would look at anywhere from 25 to, I think my record was 127 homes before they pick one. It's a lot of pain driving around, looking at it, going in and out. It's a lot of work to find the right home. And nowadays, that doesn't happen anymore. The buyers are making decisions as to whether or not they're even going to waste their gas money on a home based on the online pictures. So that is your first showing. You have to make sure you hire the agent that gets that right. Still to this day, I see agents that are too cheap and too lazy to hire professional photographers. And the next thing you know, they're using iPhone pictures and there the house sits on the market without selling. And then also, if you sell on your own, now there are some people that can do that. Maybe they have somebody they know that wants to buy the home and they're fine with that price. Nothing wrong with it. However, if you're going for sale by owner, it's a little tougher to get top value. And it seems like nine times out of 10, there's a real estate agent that injects themselves into the process. And then as a seller, you find yourself, especially if that agent's representing the buyer, you find yourself at a disadvantage. So I wouldn't recommend it these days, especially with the market softening like it is. And then another problem that sellers do is, in general, if you don't price it right, if you don't present the home properly to the market, the buyers either aren't going to look at it or they aren't going to make an offer. So another common mistake is not listening to the feedback. Sometimes agents will give very constructive feedback, and I really appreciate it. They'll come through and they'll show it and they'll go, well, my buyer found a better home in that price range. That tells me it's a pricing issue. Or I had one recently where they said, the comments don't match the house. I'm like, oh, okay, that's constructive. I'll go ahead and make that change to the public description. But they will give feedback on pricing, condition, how the showing experience went, and kind of what the buyers are looking at, what the competition is. So if the seller doesn't respond to that, that's kind of a huge mistake not to do that. So if you are thinking of making a move and you'd like to get some advice on what to do, what not to do to get your house ready for sale, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to your real estate voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. If you're thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Barb, it's time for the lightning round of some of your hot new listings. Tell us about them.
I have a great one in Briargate at 454,999. This home has 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, an abundance of gleaming hardwood floors, granite in the counter, backs to open space. Really, really nice home in the mid-4s. Another one up in Cripple Creek that could work out as an Airbnb or a duplex on Carr Avenue at 292. Great home in Woodland Park in the low 3s on Highway 24. A fabulous home on Tower Road. They just lowered the price to $499. This home has been rented out. The basement was rented out as an Airbnb, and the seller actually collected $15,000 a year. So you really could get half your payment paid. I have a beautiful home on Pinecrest in Woodland Park on 4 acres with stunning views and a 3-car garage in the upper 5s. A spectacular patio home in Pine Creek in Briargate on Spanish Oak Terrace, backs to the golf course, has great views, but there's some good mature trees right behind the house so that the golf balls actually don't hit the house. And that one's priced at $749. Another beautiful home in down by Peterson Air Force Base, a gorgeous rancher on Christie Court at $425. And then an amazing home in Rock Rimmon on Big Valley that has a detached 3rd-car garage, man cave, plus it's in superb condition in a very private lot. We also have a beautiful house on Broadmoor Bluffs, backs to NORAD with fresh carpet, great home at 684. Another one in Monument on True Vista at 735, beautiful yard, great home. A great deal down by the Broadmoor on Leeming Drive in the mid-9s, and then a spectacular house in High Forest Ranch on Open Skyway. And there's always many more. Got one coming up this week, actually in the southwest part of town on Beckett Drive. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You've been listening to Your Real Estate Voice. It airs every Saturday, 11 o'clock, right after Kudlow. If you're thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. And you can see replays of Barb's show at barbhasthebuyers.com or listen to the podcast on all of the popular podcast platforms like Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, many, many others. Thanks for listening. To reach out to Barb, again, that number is 719-301-3900. Have a great week, Barb. We'll talk to you next weekend.